Welcome to the Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 regular business meeting of the East Bay Mud Board of Directors. In accordance with Governor's Executive Order N-0821, which suspends portions of the Brown Act, this meeting will be conducted remotely. A physical location has not been provided for the meeting. The Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committees met this morning and will report out under item 15. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz.
Present.
Director McIntosh.
Here.
Director Mellon.
Present.
Director Patterson. Director Young.
Here.
President Lenny.
Here. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to start the meeting with some presentations that we have. The first one is the Contra Costa County Science and Engineering Fair Award for Water and Wastewater Excellence. Director Young.
Yes. Welcome to our participants in the Contra Costa County Science Fair. For the past 8 years, the district has sponsored Excellence in Water and Wastewater Research Awards, along with 10 other water and wastewater agencies in Alameda County and 11 in Contra Costa County to recognize outstanding student science and engineering projects in the world of water. As we face a future of water and climate uncertainty, it is more important than ever that we encourage these future water and wastewater leaders to think outside the box about ways we can ensure safe, reliable water into the future, and hopefully then one day that you'll consider a career in water or wastewater, ideally with us. Today, I have the pleasure of recognizing some very bright young minds who have displayed tremendous focus and hard work in water science and engineering. 3 prizes were given at the annual Contra Costa County Science Fair on March 12th. Of course, due to the pandemic, this year's science fair was virtual, and students were required to present their findings and be interviewed by judges via Zoom. No poster boards. What is particularly impressive about that is that despite all the challenges from virtual to in-person schooling over the past year, these students were still able to make the time to do the research and work necessary to develop successful projects. Today, we'd like to honor students from schools in our service area whose projects won prizes. First, we have Ethan Lee from Monte Vista High School in Danville. He won third place in the senior division for his project, turning gray water into usable water for gardening. Unfortunately, Ethan couldn't make it today. He looked at the possibility of using various household items to filter gray water. The judges were particularly impressed by his creativity as he actually tried using dog fur from his pet dog as a filter. This is the kind of creative conservation we need during these drought years. Ethan was awarded a prize of $200 for his achievement. With us today, we have Sarah Wu and Kathy Kendersky, rising 12th graders at Camp Orinda High School in Moraga, who won second place in the senior division with their project, a novel solution to plastic pollution, developing a low-cost test for plastic pollutants at sea and in drinking water. This is a research area that East Bay Mud is very engaged in right now, so this is of a lot of interest. Through their research, they were able to create a method for determining the concentration of terephthalate, which I hope I pronounced right, and other toxic plastics in a sample of water. The judges were quite impressed with their thorough research and the concise explanation of their methodology and process. One judge said, "The level with which these high schoolers are operating and thinking is well beyond their years." Each of them were awarded $500. Congratulations. Also here today are the educators that inspired and assisted them in their research and project development. Rachel Eaton helped with the chemical specifics of the project, and Roxana Jackman helped them with the lab space, supervision, and ordering chemicals. As we know, teachers have had to turn on a dime this last year to go above and beyond their already immense workload and and assist these students is remarkable. Thank you both for all that you do. The students have provided a short video clip that summarizes their research, and we're going to go to that right now.
Bringing it up now.
Plastic. It wreaks havoc on the environments it enters, breaks down to microplastics, and releases toxic chemicals during the process. Over 1 million marine organisms are killed every year due to plastic debris entering the ocean. And while many individuals are aware of the adverse environmental effects of plastic, not many are aware that scientists have a very difficult time detecting and quantifying the problem at all.
First, some background information. PET plastic that has undergone degradation releases terephthalate monomers. During further degradation, the plastic also breaks down into microplastics and leaches toxic chemicals. Because terephthalate is the last compound released during this process, identification of terephthalate confirms the presence of microplastics as well as toxic chemicals.
If terephthalate concentrations are below detectable levels, alkaline hydrolysis can be performed. We hydrolyzed bottles of PET using ethylene glycol, sulfuric acid, and sodium hydroxide to ultimately convert the polyethylene terephthalate polymer into individual monomers of terephthalate for detection. So, how do you detect terephthalate? When exposed to hydroxyl radicals, terephthalate becomes a highly detectable fluorescent compound, 2-hydroxyterephthalic acid. These hydroxyl radicals can be produced through what's known as a Fenton reaction, which involves a reaction between ferrous sulfate and hydrogen peroxide. Ultimately, we tested various concentrations of terephthalate and measured the fluorescence of each sample.
So, what did we find? As the concentration of terephthalate increased, so did the fluorescence of the sample. We were able to notice a correlation between the color of the samples as well as the concentration of terephthalate. This indicates that we could create a color scale for users to reference in order to determine the concentration of terephthalate and thus the presence of microplastic and toxic chemicals in a sample of water. All users would need is ferrous sulfate and hydrogen peroxide, both of which can be easily and inexpensively purchased. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was great. Eileen, I hope you're taking notes and that the lab is ready with the hydrogen peroxide and what was the other chemical? I'm sorry.
There are a lot of them.
No, there was only two chemicals required for the test. What were they again? Sulfuric acid and ferrous sulfate and hydrogen peroxide. Well, I wanted to just ask, how you came up with the idea for this project and how you plan to use your research in the future, or what are you hoping your research will be used for in the future?
Yeah, so our project was actually based on and inspired by a project that Kathy conducted her freshman year, which was breaking down PET plastic through alkaline hydrolysis. And the end product of the hydrolysis was a terephthalate monomer. So we sought out ways to detect this terephthalate monomer for plastic detection. And through our research, we discovered that a Fenton reaction can hydroxylate the terephthalate into following a reaction between ferrous sulfate and hydrogen peroxide, and this ultimately produces a fluorescent detectable compound called 2-hydroxyterephthalic acid, which is what we measured in our experiment, and it can be visually perceived for ordinary users. And maybe Kathy can talk more about future implications for this project.
Yeah, so there's a number of future implications. Obviously, plastic pollution is a big issue for coming generations. So being able to detect where plastic is concentrated and being able to then direct cleanup efforts is very, very important in the fight to limit plastic pollution.
Great. Okay. Any other questions from? Whoa. I don't know how that happened.
That's the next science fair project.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Awesome.
Okay, this is great work. Thank you so much. Okay, congratulations again, and we look forward to your contributions in the world of science. And if Eileen has any questions, she's our director of wastewater. Can she call you? Okay.
Hire them.
All right, thank you, Marguerite, and thank you, award winners. Our second presentation is for the Partnership for Safe Water's 20-year Directors Award for the Orinda Water Treatment Plant. Clifford, do you want to lead that one?
Yes, and first, congratulations to Sarah and Kathy. The Partnership for Safe Water awarded the Orinda Water Treatment Plant its Director's Award for the 20th consecutive year. The Partnership for Safe Water is a voluntary program whose mission is to improve the quality of water delivered to customers and improve public health by optimizing water system operations. There are currently more than 530 filtration plants serving over 105 million people participating in this program in the United States. The program consists of self-assessment tools, data reporting, and optimization programs to help treatment plants improve particulate removal and allow them to surpass regulatory requirements. The Orinda Water Treatment Plant achieved the director's level status in 2000 and has continued to meet this requirement for 20 years. The award today acknowledges that accomplishment. Accepting the 20-year Director's Award today are Chris Burquez, Water Treatment Supervisor, Anna Williams, Senior Water Treatment Plant Operator, and Lori Work-Kazemi, Senior Civil Engineer. Congratulations, Lori, Chris, and Anna, and all the Orinda Water Treatment Plant operators.
Wow, is this our first in-person pictures?
I know.
I think we did something last time, didn't we?
Congratulations. And for the last presentation, we really is a really short presentation to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Resource Recovery Program. And we have Alicia Chakrabarty here, who is the manager of Wastewater Environmental Services, to make the presentation.
Great, thank you. I'm excited to get here to commemorate the 20th anniversary of our first delivery of trucked waste. And I won't go through this timeline, but just to point out the differences that have transformed our area over the years. These photos on the left show what Oakland and Emeryville looked like 100 years ago, and that's really what the treatment plant was built for. So when those industries left, we had an opportunity with this excess capacity and built the resource recovery program around that. A couple of those early opportunities were to co-digest high-strength waste that was produced in areas that didn't have ready access to anaerobic digesters. Another opportunity was in the disposal of salty wastes that could take advantage of our brackish outfall. Over the years, we've invested a fair amount of capital in this program, building various receiving stations. The first was the low-strength station that was built in 2001 to receive our very first truckload of septage, that's porta potty type waste. And then we built two subsequent stations to receive high-strength waste. And those are all three operating today. And one of the unique aspects of the district's program is that we're open 24/7. This program has also contributed to our renewable energy generation, and we invested in a new turbine, as you know, in 2012 that went into operation in 2013 and has greatly increased our renewable energy generation and had the benefit of reducing our electricity costs as well as contributing to sales of electricity. So looking back now over 20 years, what have we done? The program has beneficially treated almost 3.5 billion gallons of waste. So that's enough waste to fill Lake Merritt a couple times over. And luckily, we didn't do that. Yeah. We've served 400 customers and permitted 1,800 individual different waste streams and produced, I talked about one of the products, which is our energy product. The other product that we have is our biosolids. So the solids that remain are returned to the land in the form of either directly as biosolids or turned into compost and then land applied. And so we estimate that from the R2 program alone, 270,000 tons of organic solids have been returned to the land, and that's equivalent to the size or the weight of the Empire State Building. A lot of biosolids. We've also produced a lot of energy over the years. We went from just under half of what was required to operate the treatment plant to more than 100%. And that's also resulted in reduced greenhouse gas emissions, equivalent to taking about 22,000 cars off the road. And the R2 story has been one of much collaboration internally within the district with our customers, but also with a number of state agencies. And just to highlight a couple here, we received a California Energy Commission grant to actually build that first solid liquid waste receiving station back in 2002. We worked closely with the California Department of Food and Agriculture to show not only the benefits, but also the safety of poultry blood digestion. We've worked with CalRecycle and the water boards on regulations that have allowed other agencies similar to EastBayMUD to take in trucked waste under their existing MPDS permits. And then most recently this year, we worked with a successful grant application for putting a hydrogen fueling station on our property. So looking ahead, we see the resource recovery program as being able to help the state continue to meet its diversion goals through smaller, cost-effective food waste digestion projects. We're also looking at changing regulations and markets related to nutrients, as well as changing energy markets to continue to derive benefit from our biogas, as well as looking at transportation as another output for the fuel. So all in all, we see the resource recovery program as an example of the district's value of stewardship and harnessing waste into resources. Just want to thank you all for the past 2 decades of support for the program.
I think Waste ST1 should be commended for all their efforts in this. I recall when we started the R2 program, how controversial it was at the board with some of the employees and some of the entities. And we've led the way, and I think that's something we should be extremely proud of. And it's also helped enable us to become, if it's still correct, we're only one of 2 water wastewater agencies that actually produces more energy than we use of all the country throughout the world. And this is part of helped us get to reach that goal. And we need to talk about that more because really it's quite an accomplishment what we've done. And I think it shows how innovative staff has been. And fortunately, the board has been there to support you. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I would like to just comment. 20 years ago, I campaigned on EastBayMUD resource recovery. From its inception, it has made EastBayMUD at SD1 the formidable green before green. And I just want to emphasize that. Love you all and be blessed. You brought great attributes to the district.
And I would just add that the R2 program seems to be just an unending source of good news stories to tell about EastBayMUD and what we do and our innovation and our efficiency and our respect for protecting the environment. And so I appreciate that work. It's amazing that it's been 20 years, or only 20 years, and all this work has been done. So thank you. So we'll move on to no announcements from closed session and on to public comment. So this is the time that members of the public who wish to speak on agenda or particularly non-agenda items can speak. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. For comments on non-agenda items will be heard now. Comments on agenda items will be heard at the time that that item is up for consideration. When prompted, please state your name, affiliation if applicable, and topic. And the secretary will call each speaker in the order received. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. However, I have the discretion to amend this time based on the number of speakers. Secretary will track time and inform each speaker when the allotted time is concluded. Usually you'll hear a little tone, so listen for that.
You have one speaker for public comment.
Okay?
Actually, you have two. And first is, I'm on another system, so give me one moment. George Cleveland, you should be able to unmute your mic. Okay, your 3 minutes will start now.
Thank you, Risha. Good afternoon, members of the board of directors and General Manager Chan and all those else who are in attendance. In the morning closed meeting, you heard from 444 leadership about concerns with BMI, the third-party vendor that is conducting the health benefit dependent care audit. I'd like to add to those concerns. 2019 leadership was informed last week that members would start getting emails this week if they haven't completed their process. And so this is the email that they received. It's titled in bold, red bold, final notice, your immediate action is required. Dependents will be removed from health plans if not verified. Please respond no later than 7/23/21. And it goes on to say the history of the audit service. And then it says, as a result, the below listed dependents are considered ineligible and will be removed from district health plans effective August 1st, 2021, unless you contact BMI's instructed below. It says if you believe your dependents are eligible for continuing coverage, you may appeal the decision to remove them from district health plans, and gives them the instructions. It's all related to BMI. Concerns about this. Why would the appeal process be handled by the third-party vendor? Other concerns about this email is coming from employee benefits at EBMUD.com under Lisa Sarandon's authority. That's fine. It's going to the employees who need to fix the issues. That's fine. The concern that you also have is why are employee supervisors being copied on this email? And why is 2019 leadership being copied on this email? We need to know about it, obviously, but this is each employee's own personal healthcare benefit situation, and I think it's highly inappropriate to include the supervisor. It's not particularly appropriate to include our union leadership on it as well. This is a problem, and I said this before, and I just didn't understand why this started. We were still in the middle of the pandemic. We're not out of it yet, and yet our employees are being tasked to go through jumping through hoops to provide information to the district, and this particular individual provided the info that they thought would be appropriate, and the third-party vendor says no. And apparently the information that's going to be needed to fulfill the obligation is going to take 6 to 8 weeks because it's relying on the records of one of the local counties. So it's a problem. And it's like I said, this information, I guess, is supposed to be somewhat confidential. So why is it going to people other than the employee? So that's a concern. My second thing, I didn't see it on the agenda, and I'm hoping it maybe makes it to the next board agenda, is what and how the folks at East Bay Mud, us, are going to be allowed to celebrate the Juneteenth federal holiday. I know because of the timing of it, it couldn't be on the board meeting when President Biden signed it into law, but it would help if it could be on the next board meeting agenda to discuss when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, George. And these issues you've brought up are, related ones, were brought up earlier in the closed session, public comment, and we asked General Manager Chan to put together some information on that. Definitely sounds like there's some kinks that need to be worked out in this new system. So, all right, our next comment.
Next, we have Yvette Rivera. Yvette, you should be able to unmute your mic, and your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you, Risha. Somebody needs to mention to the board members that their mics are on. They're on hot mics. We can hear them while people are making comments. So at this closed board meeting, this morning's closed board meeting, I read a few paragraphs from Ariel Bland and Saji Pierce's U.S. federal civil rights lawsuit against East Bay MUD as a government agency, Laura Costa as an individual, and Craig Spencer as an individual. I planned at this meeting to recite the same paragraphs from Saji Pierce's and Ariel Bland's lawsuit until I came across item 9 on today's agenda. In order to stay within the 3 minutes, I'm going to limit my reading of their lawsuit to paragraph 40. As I said in prior board meetings, anyone wishing copies of the full lawsuit or any public document I reference at board meetings can email me directly at eastbaymudgal@gmail.com. Again, that's eastbaymudgal@gmail.com, or they can ask East Bay MUD for the documents under a Public Records Act request. Ariel Bland and Saji Pierce's lawsuit, paragraph 40, states, in November 2020, the HR investigation concluded and found defendant Spencer had unconscious racial bias towards plaintiff Bland, but determined that he did not violate any district policies. Plaintiff Bland informed the general manager and HR manager that continuing to report to defendant Spencer after the investigation's findings constituted a hostile work environment. Their response was to move her to work under another supervisor, but that supervisor still reported to defendant Spencer, and defendant Spencer still assigned her work. I really don't know. This is now my comments, my opinions. I really don't know what Director Linney meant when he spoke of renewed commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity, but I certainly had no idea that it would entail prematurely giving an award to someone that was named in a civil rights lawsuit that allegedly states he engaged in racial bias, discrimination, and retaliation. To this board of directors, imagine how many people at East Bay MUD have resigned after experiencing gender and racial bias from some supervisors and managers at East Bay MUD. Imagine how many people of color and women subjected to racial or gender bias have received unwarranted counselings that could not be appealed. Imagine how many warning letters to people of color and women that reference those unappealable counseling letters have been written by supervisors and managers at East Bay MUD that have racial or gender bias. Imagine how many people haven't been mentored, how many people have gotten breaks or training on the side because of racial bias, racial or gender bias. Imagine how many people did not get disability accommodations because of racial, gender, or disability bias. Go ahead and imagine it. For many of us at East Bay MUD, we don't have to imagine it because we have been subjected to it. In my opinion, to move forward on passing agenda
Yvette, please,
item number...
please begin to wrap up. Your time is up.
This is my last line.
Okay, go ahead.
In my opinion, to move forward on passing agenda number 9 to commemorate the service of Craig Spencer, given the current litigation in U.S. federal court against East Bay MUD, Mr. Spencer and Ms. Acosta, would be a slap in the face to all victims of discrimination and retaliation at East Bay MUD. Thank you.
All right, any other public comment? Okay. Then we are on to our consent calendar. There are 9 items for agenda for consideration, and we want to pull items 8 and 9.
Thank you.
For special consideration. Otherwise, can I have a motion for items 1 through 7?
I'll second or whatever.
All right, moved by Director Young, seconded by Director Coleman. We don't need roll call anymore. I'm all messed up here. All right, then, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, items on the consent calendar passed unanimously. Item 8. General
Yes,
Manager.
I'm excited to bring to the board for consideration the appointment of Janella Sambor-Wallace as our Diversity and Inclusion Officer. As you know, this is an important position that will help us with our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Janella worked in the Office of Civil Rights at BART and managed our Title VI Environmental Justice and Diversity and Inclusion programs. She was also a law clerk with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights and a judicial extern for the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. She attended Brown University and received her JD from UC Hastings College of Law.
Yeah, Frank, go ahead.
Pulling this from consent calendar, and I've made a suggestion that perhaps for the future, when it is an appointment, it should be under determination and discussion. Because
To save the ritual?
To deprive you the opportunity?
I'm willing to be deprived of the opportunity because I think the recognition of the appointment is that important. And it's not just this appointment, but any that is exempt. And credentials such as Brown University and Hastings, wow. I can remember when my oldest was looking at Brown University and was thinking to himself, no, I don't want to go to the East Coast. I'll stay in California. And he settled for Claremont. You notice I said settled for Claremont. So, we're pleased to bring somebody on board that is really high quality. And coming from BART, I can only imagine what the difference will be, because we've recruited other people from BART before also. And my recollection of at least one of them, when he was asked to help them out, he said, oh no, been there, done that. and he stayed as far away from it as he could. So I would like very much to move this appointment and say welcome to the person, assuming we all vote yes.
All right. Moved by Director Mellon, seconded by Director McIntosh. Any further discussion?
President Lenny, we have, it looks like we have one person for public comment. I see a hand up. I can check and see if it's for this item.
Okay.
Barb Sorensen, are you speaking on item 8?
It's Nick Lawrence, not Barb Sorensen, and I was hoping to be called during the public comment on non-agenda items, but my hand was not recognized when you called on the other folks.
Okay, we will come back to you. Give me one moment. And I did not see your hand up. Give us one moment. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Welcome. It's an opportunity to come up and say a few words, if you'd like.
Good afternoon, directors. Thank you. That was such a great welcome. Thank you all for inviting me here today. I'm excited for the opportunity to join East Bay MUD and to bring my experience in the area of civil rights and equity to this agency. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are areas I've been committed to throughout my whole work career, and the commitment to this area is, as we all know, now a lot more important than ever. And, I understand that East Bay MUD and the board's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion are apparent, and I'm proud to be part of this team to further develop and advance this area for the district. And again, thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Nice to do that in an in-person opportunity here. Item 9, we have a resolution commending Craig Spencer's service as General Counselor. As after 26 years of service, General Counsel Craig Spencer is retiring from the district. His official retirement date is September 1st, 2021, but today is our opportunity to formally thank Craig for his legal guidance over the years, and specifically in the areas of strategic planning, water rights, water quality, finance, rates and charges, and environmental stewardship. Additionally, Craig's strong negotiation and litigation skills have been beneficial to the district and its ratepayers. Some of his accomplishments are enumerated in the resolution before the board today. However, before we make a motion to adopt the resolution, welcome any comments from the board. John, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start off. Craig, I know you're in the audience. It's been a real pleasure working with you over the years, even prior to you becoming General Counsel. I found you always to be very approachable, one, which is important, You didn't talk down to us as an attorney, since I'm not an attorney. I could understand you. And really, you gave us sage advice when it was needed and for us to make the right policy decisions as well as the legal decisions. And that's, from at least a board perspective, what I have always looked for. And it was a real pleasure working with you. I hope that you have a phenomenal time spending time with you and your family in your retirement. It's well deserved. And again, thank you so much for all your service to East Bay MUD, its employees, and to all our 1.4 million ratepayers. Thank you.
Right.
Greg, you know, watching you guide us through the polybutylene issues, and especially dealing with Shell 1 and then Shell 2, it was an educational experience. Clearly, you kept us going on track, and I like the idea that the second time around, Shell asked how much did we want to go away and never darken their doorstep again, which is the ultimate perfect outcome. But that's the kind of work you did. You were a litigator. That's what we hired you for. And by golly, you stayed with us so long, I couldn't believe it, but good for you. So I'm going to give you the standard wish I give to any retiree. I hope you get more out of the pension fund than we put in for you.
I think that's how compound interest is supposed to work.
Craig, it's been a pleasure working with you all of these years. I have appreciated your counsel on numerous occasions. I hope you enjoy your retirement. Hopefully the best is yet to come.
Bill.
Craig, we're going to miss you. I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you. Many times we've had discussions about items going forward. And the majority of those times, you and I saw eye to eye, sometimes in spite of others, but we prevailed. And the most important thing is that in our trial situations that have come up over a myriad of different things, you know, where our water comes from, how we got supplemental water supply, the challenges we had before the State Water Board, all of those we won. And thanks to you, we're where we are today. I just always go back a little bit, maybe because I've been here a long time. But each one of those fights represented a milestone in this district of accomplishment. So thank you. Wish you well in your retirement, and come see me sometime.
Andy.
Greg, I would like to thank you so much for your decades of dedication to the district. And it's not just the protecting the district and advancing our legal interests that makes your journey with East Bay MUD so remarkable. I think it's also the contributions that you made to the public sector and public accountability overall that is so remarkable. In particular, the way you joined with other public agencies to take on big banks after the Great Recession in the LIBOR scandal, and as well as the product liability issues when some of the major plastic pipe manufacturers were selling municipal utilities faulty pipes. So I think some of those contributions have a nationwide impact, and I think we have you to thank for bringing those issues to the district and for the district using our force as a major public agency in that mode of leadership. So thank you for, at its core, at your core, being a leader for our general counsel's office and helping the district avoid a major liability and also making sure that our departments were working as well as they did. Thank you.
I guess I go last. I became aware of the skill in our legal department around the big banks issue actually before I became a member of the board, when I was working with our union to hold the banks accountable. And remember being one of our staff people, after I got elected, one of our staff people being very, as she looked at, what we had done in litigation was, said, wow, I haven't seen any public agencies taking on, the banks this way. So hats off on that, hats off on other creative legal strategies, and our lengthy but hopefully not long to be remembered issues around certain landslides in Contra Costa County that caused us to work much more closely together. But appreciate your sort of strategic thinking and contribution to the district in looking out after our interests. So good luck with whatever the next chapter is for you.
Great. And Craig, I just want to add too that I've just appreciated your clear explanations of complex legal situations that we've confronted. And I had forgotten about the Wells Fargo work, but that was really outstanding and made me proud to be East Bay MUD board member. In the grander sense of the role that we tend to play, or we can play in the larger stage. I've always admired your strategic mind in terms of litigation and in terms of positioning the East Bay MUD to protect ourselves and to also be a voice for right and good that goes on. So thank you for your many years of service in addition to being general counsel. Invite you to come on up. And,
yes. I'm a lawyer, I get to speak. Right?
Yeah.
Do we take our vote before he speaks?
That's right.
I'll move the item.
Second.
We can do that. All right, we have a motion.
Yeah,
Bill
John
seconded.
did, and Bill seconded.
All right, we'll take 2 seconds on this one. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, and I'm very humbled by your comments and remarks. It's hard to believe it's been 26 years. I don't know where the time went. And as they say, time flies when you're having fun. And definitely the time I've had here at the district has been the highlight. It's been my career. I mean, 26 years is a career. It's not just a job, it's a career. And I keep thinking, well, what makes for a rewarding career? And I think it's 2 things. One is, did you have a chance to work on interesting and challenging matters and issues? And as you have noted, each of you, we really haven't had a shortage of those types of issues here in the last 26 years. I came here wanting to work on big cases, and sure enough, I got to handle a lot of big cases. The second part of being a rewarding career is being able to work with really good and dedicated colleagues. And this is where I find that the district is outstanding. Everyone that I have worked with has been friendly, they've been supportive of each other, they've been great protectors of the environment, and they really want to make sure that the customers are treated well. This isn't something that just comes up naturally inside an organization. It's something that has to be created, something that has to be nurtured, and I truly believe it comes from the top down. And I really commend the board and all boards that I've worked with for the decency that you've shown each other, the hard work that you put in on issues. Even when you disagree, you are respectful of each other. And I think that that really sets the tone for the entire organization and has for all of these years. And importantly, too, I want to note, because I read articles about what goes on in other agencies, but the board's support for staff and the respect that you show to staff is truly amazing. And I think that really adds to making the district a great place to work. So I really do thank you for all of your leadership. I want to also thank the senior management team and all of its iterations. It has changed over time. I really want to thank the former general managers, Dennis Deemer, Alex Coate, that I worked under, and the current general manager, Clifford Chan. They are truly dedicated to implementing the board's policies, and they want to always get it right. And that applies not only to the general managers, but also to the entire senior management team. I think the most satisfying part of my job has been in working with individuals at the district. I've had lots of cases where I've had to interview witnesses, defend them in depositions, work with them on cases and issues. And as you've noted, there's been a lot of interesting ones. The 2 iterations of the polybutylene case, the Bay Delta, the Walnut Creek pipeline explosion, which was a very tragic incident, but also the Bay Delta, and the Comanche permit extension. So all of these were really challenging, but what really made it helpful was the great work done by the colleagues that I worked with and the teamwork that they demonstrated. But last, I really want to save most of my thanks to all of my friends and colleagues in the Office of General Counsel, both past and present. We haven't had a whole lot of turnover in OGC until recently, but it just shows that there has been a real devotion to this organization and a commitment by the attorneys and by the staff. And I want to commend and thank the prior general counsels who helped me, Bob Helwick, Jelena Collins, but it's truly a great way to have a career when you get to work with talented attorneys and dedicated staff. And so I really thank you for that opportunity. So in closing, I think I'll just maybe preempt Risha and say, Mr. Spencer, your 26 years and 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Sorry. Nick Lawrence, you should be able to unmute your mic. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I presume that my public comments have been received and distributed to the board. Thank you for that. I wanted to call attention to the dangerous condition of public property that exists in Orinda on Tappan Terrace. Some of you may recognize this location as being where former general manager Jerry Gilbert constructed his home some decades ago. The fire hydrant, there's only one of them on Tappan Terrace, is not working. At best, it is a low pressure, low flow fire hydrant because of its geographic elevation. A 2-inch rubber hose or even a 4-inch rubber hose will not give it the fire flow capability of the steel pipe, which has been serving it historically, and which was assured by Carlton Chan 3 months ago would be replaced. As we know, equal pressure does not mean equal water flow. If there's a fire loss in this area and an ineffective fire hydrant is a factor in fighting the fire, it will be EBMUD's liability because the fire hydrant, the sole fire hydrant on Tappan Terrace is ineffectual and is served by a 2-inch rubber hose. So I'm asking that the hose be replaced and an 8-inch supply line, as Mr. Chan promised, be done and be done soon. Secondly, I heard comments just a few minutes ago about landslides in Contra Costa County. I'm assuming that that was not a reference to the event here, because here we have a water leak that caused a landslide, and it concerns me that EBMUD has floated the false narrative of a landslide occurring, when I know from what I saw that the water leak is what caused the earth to move. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board or anyone else in attendance has on this subject, and I yield the rest of my time to answering those.
So we shared with you the comments from Nick Lawrence, and I will be bringing back to the board information about his particular situation.
Who was that speaking?
That Jan. All right, thank you. Thank you for your comments in your letter. We'll respond to that appropriately.
Who was that speaking, please?
This is Director Linney, President Linney.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Don't see anyone else, no.
Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're now on to public hearing number 1 for items 10.1 through 10.2 A through D. This is a matter to hold a public hearing to consider objections and protests to EBMUD's written report describing each parcel of real property subject to wet weather facilities charge to be collected on the 2021 to 2022 property tax rolls for the EBMUD's fiscal year 2022 and the amount of the wet weather facility charge to be imposed on each parcel. The public hearing is now open, and written protests must be mailed and received by the district before the close of this public hearing, or they may be dropped in the drop box located outside the entry doors of the district's administration building at 375 11th Street in downtown Oakland. Protests by fax, email, or other electronic means will not be accepted as formal written protests. To be considered, all written protests must be received before the close of the public hearing. Eileen White, Director of Wastewater, will give a presentation on the wet water facilities charge, and we will take public comment after that.
Great. Good afternoon, President Linney and members of the board. I'm going to provide a brief presentation on the wet weather facilities charge. And we all know, as a water agency, we get excited when it rains. But because of the aging infrastructure for the wastewater systems in the East Bay, it's actually very challenging during rain events to protect public health and the environment. There's 1,600 miles of regional collection systems that the different cities, Albany, Berkeley, Emeryville, Oakland, Piedmont, and Alameda own and operate. Those 1,600 miles of aging infrastructure are slowly but surely being improved over time. As a result of the district working collaboratively with these cities, 500 miles of the regional collection system pipes are being evaluated for leaks, and approximately 167 miles have been actually improved. There's also 1,600 miles of private sewer laterals. That's a small pipe that takes the sewage from the home to the street. And as a result of the district's private sewer lateral program and working with the city of Berkeley and their private sewer lateral program, about 500 miles of private sewer laterals have been certified to date. So we're making progress on fixing our aging infrastructure, but we still have a long ways to go. So on a regular day like today, when the sun is shining, someone flushes their toilet and the wastewater leaves the house, goes into the private sewer lateral, and then into the city's collection system, into the district's interceptors, and makes its way to the wastewater treatment plant, where we treat it, and then we discharge the effluent to San Francisco Bay, meeting all our requirements. But when it rains, it gets much more complex, because the rainwater enters into those leaking private sewer laterals. The rainwater enters into those leaking wastewater pipes that the city owns. Groundwater infiltrates up. And instead of seeing a flow of 50 million gallons per day, we can see flows in excess of 700 million gallons per day. Our treatment plant is not designed to treat 700 million gallons per day. And that's why we're working collaboratively with the cities within our wastewater system to fix the aging infrastructure. So in order to manage the wet weather flows, we rely on 3 wet weather facilities that we turn on when we get these atmospheric rivers coming in. In the upper left, you can see our Oakport facility. The middle left photo shows you our San Antonio Creek, and the lower bottom is Point Isabel. These wet weather facilities were constructed in the late 1980s, and they're used only to deal with these wet weather flows. We have 37 miles of pipeline, 15 pump stations, and 11 million gallon storage basin at our wastewater plant that we use to manage the flows during these atmospheric rivers. We also have diversion and overflow structures and level monitoring stations. Since 1987, the district has been collecting the wet weather facilities charge from our customers. It represents about 20% of the total revenue for the wastewater system. The wet weather facilities charge funds the capital expenditures for these I&I facilities, these wet weather facilities to treat the infiltration and inflow. And it represents almost $30 million. So the way the wet weather facilities charge is charged for our property owners. It depends on your lot size. And depending on your lot size, the larger the lot size, the larger the wet weather facilities charge you pay. So it's based into 3 different lot sizes, and accordingly, the wet weather facilities charge increases with the increase in your lot size. So there's procedural requirements per the Health and Safety Code in order to put the wet weather facilities charge on our customers' tax bills. So first, we have to prepare and file a written report each year with the Secretary of the District. Then we have to publish a notice of the filing of the report of the public hearing in a newspaper of general circulation once a week for 2 weeks. Then we must hold a public hearing, which we're doing today, to consider protests of the report and to determine if there's a majority protest. Prior to me coming to the podium today, there was no protest. So that's the good news. If there is no majority protest, the board must approve the report and approve collecting the wet weather facilities charge on the property tax rolls, both with a 2/3 vote. So that requires 5 of our directors. And then finally, we must file the approved report with the county auditors on or before August 10th. So this shows you the timeline which we did to meet all the requirements. And so today, on July 13th, we're holding the public hearing, and the board, we're asking to accept staff recommendations, which I will review in the next slide. So staff's recommendation is for the board to adopt the report by at least 2/3 of our board today. We're asking the board to authorize the district to collect the fiscal year 2022 wet weather facilities charge on the property tax rolls of Alameda and Contra Costa counties. We're asking the board to authorize district staff to adjust the fiscal year 2022 wet weather facilities charge for any affected parcels as new information is provided by the counties. And then we're asking the board to direct the Secretary of the District to file a copy of the report with the Alameda County Auditor and Contra Costa Auditor. And first, before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much to Risha, Kathy, Humphreys, and to Amy and our wastewater department, who have been incredible as we work through this wet weather facilities charge, which is actually a very complicated process. It sounds simple, but it's not. So I just want to say thank you so much to the team. And with that, I open it to any questions.
Any questions from board members? Great. Any public comments? People who want to?
We have no one on the line for public comment.
Okay. And then I will close the public hearing. And do we have any total number of valid protests? We came in 0. Seems fairly incontroversial then. The district has 176,092 parcels that are subject to the wet weather facilities charge and amounts listed in the report. The Secretary of the District has advised that the district received 0 valid protests from the record owners of parcels listed in the report, and upon which the wet weather facilities charge is proposed to be collected on the property tax rolls. Based on the number of valid protests submitted prior to the close of the public hearing, a majority protest does not exist for the adoption of the report. Accordingly, the report may be adopted and the wet weather facilities charge may be collected on the fiscal years 2021 to 22 property tax rolls of the Alameda and Contra Costa counties for East Bay MUD's fiscal year 2022 upon approval of the board. Now we're going to move to agenda items 10.2 A to D in order to A, adopt East Bay MUD's written report describing each parcel of the real property subject to the wet weather facilities charge by at least a 2/3 vote of the members of the board. That means 5 board members. B, authorize the district to collect the wet weather facilities charge on the fiscal year 2021 to 22 property tax rolls of the Alameda and Contra Costa counties. C, authorize district staff to adjust the wet weather facilities charge for any affected parcels as new information is provided by the counties. And D, to direct the Secretary of the District to file a copy of the report on or before August 10th, 2021, with the Alameda County Auditor and the Contra Costa County Auditor. We will now vote on items 10.2 A through D, and we can do this all in one vote. But I'll need someone to make a motion first. Okay, moved by Director McIntosh, seconded by Director Patterson. Do we need a roll call vote for this? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. But wait, there's more. Public hearing number 2, item 11. We are to conduct a public hearing to authorize actions related to the transfer of delinquent East Bay MUD charges to the Alameda and Contra Costa counties 2021 to 22 property tax rolls. We need a public hearing for this as well, and I will now open that hearing. This is a public hearing to consider objections and protests to the General Manager's report to transfer delinquent East Bay MUD charges to the 2021 to 2022 property tax rolls. If there is anyone on the call regarding this item, staff can be reached at 510-287-0612 to assist you with making payment arrangements and to provide information related to the delinquent charges. Is there anyone on the line who wishes to object or protest the actions being considered by the board?
There is no one on the line.
Okay. If there are no protesters on this, we will then close this public hearing. This hearing is now closed. We're now on agenda item 11.2 to adopt the General Manager's report dated June 8th, 2021, and authorize the General Manager to exclude from the report any affected parcels or amounts as appropriate, including those that the district receives payment for on or before August 10th, 2021, the date in which the reports will be sent to the Alameda and Contra Costa counties. A summary of the final report will be included in the August 2021 General Manager's monthly report. Can I have a motion then to approve the GM report and transfer delinquent charges to the property tax rolls?
So moved.
Moved by Director Mellon.
Second.
Seconded by Director Young. We'll now have a vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, we'll now move to determination and discussion. Legislative update. Marlene Dumaine is in the audience and in person.
Yay.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon.
It's actually gotten civilized again. It was just that 110, 113-ish over the weekend. So now we're back to like 92. Fine. It's very, very nice to see everybody. I want to start with that. Very good to be here in person. I have a written ledger report for you today and then an update with some good news at the state and federal level. We did talk about the legislative report in the Legislative HR Committee this morning. Before I get started, Chair Coleman, is there?
I would just like to report that all members of the committee were present and we approved all the recommended actions that Marlene is going to be talking about right now.
And with that, I'll jump into the legislative report. The first bill is AB 1066, and we're recommending a support position on this. This bill is wanting to provide public health protections for freshwater bodies where there's high body contact for public recreation. And the bill would have it go through a regulatory process, starting with actions by the California Water Quality Control Council, working with the State Water Board and others to come up with definitions and recommendations that would go to the State Water Board for a regulatory program. The idea here is to have a consistent approach statewide, similar to what they do with ocean beach monitoring for public health purposes, recognizing that there's a big difference between a beach circumstance and a freshwater body. But we think this bill takes the appropriate approach by going through the regulatory process and can learn from the things East Bay MUD has done at Comanche. And with that, we're recommending a support on this.
Any questions? All right, keep going.
Okay, next one, SB 222. This is Senator Dodd's Water Rate Assistance Program measure. We are recommending a support, if amended, on this measure. This is one of two bills that we brought to you with information earlier in the year. The other bill is not moving this year. What this bill would like to do, is set up a statewide low-income assistance program for water and wastewater utility customers. And the bill has undergone quite a few amendments, and we think it is in pretty good shape. We're close. What we're looking for are basically a clarification at this point that would allow the local programs like East Bay MUDs to continue doing what they do. In our case, it's sort of an above and beyond approach. And to make that clarification, clarify that it would be funded at the state level. And if a local agency wants to implement the state program, they could do it, but they wouldn't have to do it. With that, I want to back up and kind of explain the kind of three ways we've been looking at this measure as it's evolved. One is looking for an approach that would ultimately be efficient, so that when they get funding, that it is done in a way that's efficient, that's minimizing administrative costs, so that we're not looking at something that has a burdensome state approach and then a burdensome approach at the local level, so that it's eating up a lot of that money that should be getting out for aid. Two is an approach that preserves the authority of the locally elected board. There were a previous iteration of the measure had provisions that required local agencies to submit rate data and boundary data to the State Water Board for validation. That was concerning. That has come out. That is concerning from an admin cost perspective and also potentially an interference with local rate setting authority. That's no longer in the bill. And then lastly, about the local programs, allowing the local programs like East Bay MUDs to continue. And if we wanted to implement the state program, we could, but we wouldn't have to. And that the state is paying for this baseline local assistance program. Now, talking about the program that the bill envisions, there are three levels, basically. One is crisis assistance, and that is intended to be addressing customers that are imminently looking at shutoff. Two is the kind of baseline program statewide, for rate assistance. So that would be for direct bill payers statewide. And then 3 would be for those that are paying their utilities as part of their rent. So it's those individuals that the water agency doesn't have that direct relationship with, but it would propose a mechanism to get assistance out to those people as well. Right now, the bill does not contemplate a funding source, and a funding source has not been identified. There's nothing in the budget at this point for this particular bill, and the bill is subject to appropriation by the legislature. So what that means is the bill would not take effect until money is provided for it. I think, frankly, that doing this separate from the funding source makes a lot of sense because it allows the senator and the proponents and the legislature to really work through details of the program absent any sort of controversy of a funding source. So they're 2 separate conversations. The funding source conversation will happen. It'll just happen separately from the bill. We have been working with our associations, both CMUA and Aqua, and we've had a conversation with the proponents about what it is that we're looking for. And they know that we want to do this support if amended position. It was well received. We think the timing is right to do that. And that's why we're bringing the recommendation to you at this time. Question?
And so the specific thing that we want to see in amendments is what?
Right. And this is going to require some work. So we don't have specific language. We have some amendments that are proposed right now that aren't public that we want to look at. But it's really to make it clear that the state's going to fund this so that we don't get into a Prop 218 situation if we chose to implement, that the admin costs would be covered by the state and the funding would come from the state. So not from our non-rate revenue, that is for the CAP program. And also that a local program could continue to exist happily, coexist happily but separately if that was the desire of the agency implementing.
So just so I understand, would it work such that, or what we're contemplating or hoping we can get is an agreement that the state would, basically we'd be able to increase the size of our CAP program because we'd be getting this baseline direct ratepayer
if we want to
money, or
and the reason we want to leave that open is because there's also there's a couple components here. The component of getting aid out to people that don't pay a utility bill, that could be something that we look at as an agency and say that we can't do that. That's going to be burdensome. It's going to cost a lot of money, and so that may be something that would be more appropriately coming from the state. The other piece is what has yet to be determined is what are the performance metrics? How do we reach people? How do we get the data? Is that something that's doable within our paradigm, or is that something better accomplished at the state level, kind of a uniform way statewide? One issue here is there are 2,900 or so water agencies in the state. So if there is local implementation, it may be a hybrid model. Does that make sense from an efficiency standpoint or not? We don't know yet. So we think rather than locking in a mandate on locals right now, leaving that flexibility makes sense from an efficiency standpoint, if nothing else.
Other questions? All right.
Okay.
it's still really complicated.
Well, it is. And if I could speak to that, I'm going to jump over to another topic for a second because this speaks to the complication of this. What SB 222 contemplates is running it through CSD, the Community Services Department, consulting with the State Water Board. CSD is the agency that is implementing the federal COVID relief funding. So that's the $100 million that came through the federal bills. CSD is also the agency that implements the electricity LIHEAP program. That's CSD. Now, the state $1 billion, which is part of the good news that I'll share in a minute, that will go through the State Water Board. That will go to water agencies. Then there's a third piece which is the rental assistance. That's going through HCD at the state level and using a third-party administrator and also being administered directly by cities and counties. So we've got this potpourri of implementing options. And then at the federal level, it's HHS. And HHS is the agency that's pushing out the federal relief money. And they're also talking about what a federal permanent rate assistance program could look like. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And the dust has not settled. There are a lot of conversations that still need to happen.
Where's the bill in the process?
The bill is in the second house in the Appropriations Committee.
Okay.
It's being heard tomorrow, correct?
I'm not sure if it's being heard tomorrow or
Okay.
not. I don't think so.
Okay,
All
I
right.
misunderstood you
So we
earlier
can
today.
take all of our items with one vote. We have a third item then.
One more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ratepayer assistance bill. So are the amendments in this discussion of the ability of a local agency in administering its own program, assuming the state funds a statewide program, is the concept as we pursue amendments to receive our, so to say, fair share of state funding that goes, I believe Marguerite's comments may have gone to that issue, but I want to just double check if that's the intent of, one of the intents of our amendments, that we would be making sure that we would receive a pro rata share of what we do locally.
On the arrearages, yes. On 222, it's really to leave it open so that if we want to implement, we could, but we're not required to, because there are so many details to be worked out on what this program looks like that if we get locked into a mandate and then find out, oh, these performance metrics we can't meet, or oh, we need to reach out to people we don't have a relationship with, and our admin costs are going to explode, it makes more sense for the state to do it. Then we want to have the ability to not be implementing locally, but where our CAP program could continue. So if there's a state, let's say there's a baseline state program, and to make up a number, I don't know, whatever, 20% of the water bill's covered, something like that. Our CAP program could still do what it does today, which is above and beyond. We could still offer over and above what the state would offer and get to our ratepayers and work with them on all the things we work with them on. And we'd be able to arguably do more because the state's coming in at that baseline level.
But I think that's what our question is, and it's not clear from what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is whether, we'd get, basically, it's like the baseline happens and then we go.
Right.
We add in
Yes.
our 30%, which basically enables us then to extend the number of people
Right.
that we can enroll in the CAP program, because 40% of it is being picked up by, 40% of what we offer is being picked up by the state.
Yeah, so in either model, the concept would be the money flow, the people ultimately getting the money would not change. It's just how it gets there. So yes, our ratepayers would still get their fair share, regardless of if it comes from the state or through East Bay MUD's CAP program.
And there's two ways that we go above and beyond. One is the level of the lower rate that the customer faces, and the other is the eligibility. It looks like their eligibility threshold in the current version of the bill is to some degree lower than our threshold. So the coverage of wastewater is also something that we do that may not be covered by these efforts too. So I definitely would like to see a program where if there's state general funds going to a state program, that an agency such as ours that is going above and beyond can still receive our fair share, even if we didn't participate in other programs. We should still find a way, working with our local counties and cities, to have some kind of constructive outcome. I wouldn't want our perception of administrative burden to deprive our needy customers of the benefits that are contemplated. So I look forward to hearing how those discussions are shaking out. And if the board is, as a whole is needed to make sure that we have those interagency conversations, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And thank you.
Marlene, you should explain, at least on what Andy's asking about wastewater, that's in the tier 2 level?
Well, wastewater for 222
Yeah.
is part of it.
Okay, it's the federal side.
It's the COVID arrearages.
Okay, sorry.
So.
Going ahead.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, that's
just
the
to add
second
more
part, right.
confusion. But I'll confuse everybody in a minute with all the COVID stuff.
But Marlene, and apologies, because it's had a hard time keeping up with this, is that the idea is the bill will pass, and then you'll figure out these pieces, how they get, that some group of smart people will go back and say, here's how we're going to actually implement this?
I think so. Well, according to the bill, yes. And so what we'd like to do is just get the basic language right. But ultimately, CSD would create an advisory group, and there would be water utility representatives, NGOs, general public, state board, really nailing down the details on this. There's a lot that needs to be nailed down. The bill is a big framework at this point.
Yeah, I would, well, I'll talk to you offline. I have some concerns.
Are you?
Implementing concern? No, it has to do with the use of third parties to administer these programs.
Finding smart people.
Oh, not finding smart people. There are plenty of smart people to go around. No, it has to do with the model that, some concerns about the model that LIHEAP uses to do, retrofits and how well they actually get to the target audience. That's all. Some of that has to do with how much money they get, which is not enough, but.
Okay. We ready for the next one?
Item number 3.
Okay, item number 3. This is, hang on a second, I'm just looking at something here. Before I go to item number 3, I'm looking at the ledge report. And just as an FYI, at least the copy I have, the support list for 222 is wrong. There was a support list in the committee analysis that was wrong, and we used the latest committee analysis. So if your version says Burton Snowboard, it's the wrong support list. Just heads up. But Clean Water Action, Community Water Center, et cetera, are all the actual supporters. I just wanted to draw that to your attention. Okay, on to.
Is there a bill that Burton Snowboard is supporting?
Apparently, and I'm not sure which one it is, but it was clearly in the committee's cut and paste function when they did the analysis, so.
Marlene?
Yes.
So on 222, do we need the board to?
We're going to bundle the 3.
Oh, you're going to bundle them all, sorry.
Okay, supply bank. This is regarding the Oakport Supply Bank project. And what we're asking for is support of the budget trailer bill language that is being sought. This is a CEQA clarification on the transportation impacts. And this is something that Supply Bank has been working on for quite some time. And normally, the process would be a little different, but we are in a really unique situation with the budget. I said this morning that when the state is dealing with such a large amount of money, surplus and federal relief money, this is proving to be a much more difficult budget than when there's a big deficit. And there's a lot of pressure on the budget committees. And so there was a request made late last week that a letter of support signed by all of East Bay MUD's directors would be helpful in moving this forward. So we're bringing it to you with a support recommendation. The language that they're seeking is language that our council has looked at. It is a clarification of the CEQA transportation law, and it also protects our existing uses of the property. So we're requesting a formal support with a note that we have a letter ready to go for signature. If the board approves the item, it's ready to go today.
If I can speak to that, having been out there at the, I guess it's sort of the groundbreaking event they had maybe a month or so ago. This is a great project. And I know Doug had sent a letter, I had sent a letter to Senator Skinner about this, and I would just recommend that we all agree to have our names affixed to that letter for this purpose. It's a great community investment, and it's the right thing to be doing, especially right now.
Yeah, and I would just say that I've been working with Supply Bank on trying to get this through, and it seems like one hoop after another. We've had to jump through, relatively painless, but just affirmation that that the board is fully behind this project is what they're looking for right now. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Is Senator Skinner shepherding?
Yes, she's the chair of the committee.
Right. No, I know.
Yeah.
So I'll move all three bills that have been approved by Ledge Committee this morning that have been reported.
Second.
All right. Moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director Patterson. Any further discussion on any of the items, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Great.
Updates?
Updates.
May I have a few more minutes?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so now for
Never
the good,
enough.
the good news portion. What was that? I have 3 minutes, that's it?
No.
Tell us what the amount's going to be in Build Back Better.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's subject to negotiation. Let's talk about the state stuff first. On the COVID arrearages, through the federal legislation, there's about $100 million coming to the state for water and wastewater utility debt relief. That's going to be administered through CSD. That was who the governor put forward, and they're working on the implementation plan for that now. What we have been advocating for since day one is any allocation method needs to be proportional, such that our ratepayers, our people in need, get equal access to funding, and they're not eliminated because of where they live. And the Senate came up with a proposal earlier this year that would allocate $1 billion in state COVID relief money for this purpose. And that was a very ambitious ask, and it worked. The Senate put it forward. There is now agreement. And what was dropped into a budget trailer bill over the weekend was implementing language that uses that proportional allocation concept. It was looking a little dicey about a week ago, but the proportional concept has prevailed. What is not as happy, but it's not horrible news, it's not great, eligibility for wastewater was at issue. Huge point of controversy with leadership. And that was battled out, and where it landed was that wastewater is second tier on that $1 billion. So the water arrearages have to be dealt with first, and then wastewater arrearages would be dealt with. The vote in the legislature is expected tomorrow on these bills, and we do expect the governor to sign the trailer bill on this one. So right now, it's looking like pretty good news. It's looking like our ratepayers will have access to some meaningful COVID arrearage relief money.
And what's our, Andrew, I don't know if you're ready to say how you're thinking we'd get the word out to our folks once this happens.
Well, I mean, we've always been very active in outreaching to customers about at least the options, and we're currently working with the housing community development, HCD department right now at the state level, sharing data regarding customers who have filed claims with those third parties that mentioned earlier. And we are making progress. We are doing data transfer right now, and we're testing the wiring capability. So far we identify about 200 or so customers that have filed claims that are eligible customers that met the eligibility requirements. So for those, as soon as that process concludes, we will be receiving money directly from the department to offset the arrearages for that 12-month period between March 2020 to March 2021.
And I think the other thing too is Andrew and the staff have been working with the county and with the cities that are implementing the program, that when they come and ask for rental relief, that they know about our program as well. And that information, I think, is on a lot of their websites as well.
Yeah, and Kelly's team and I are working very hard to kind of disperse that message out, and we're sharing a lot of information that we've been receiving from the state in terms of the rental relief, including the utility arrearage relief portion to all the customers at the moment.
Right, and so we're getting paid directly.
We're getting paid directly from the state, correct, for the one that who are choose to implement the procedures with that state option. Thanks.
Okay, now to avoid or cause more confusion, the program that Andrew was just talking about is the rental relief program. And the state has gotten a bunch of money on the rental relief. And that is being implemented through HCD and also by cities and counties. There is a third party involved there. And on the rental relief, the first iteration of the state implementing bill gave up to 80% for landlords, and utility arrearages was secondary category in terms of priority. The second bill in implementation at the state level allows landlords to get 100% relief. It also allows tenants to access the money. Utilities are a secondary piece. That is the place that the multifamily property owners can go to get COVID relief. And that's the place the tenants can go to get COVID relief for their past due rent. So the money that Andrew's talking about in the process with HCD is the rental relief pot. When we talk about the $1 billion for utility relief, that's going to come through the State Water Board. And one of the first things they're going to do is ask water utilities for, tell us how much your utility debt is. And they will take that and look at that compared to how much money is available, and then figure out how they're going to allocate it.
So for people that didn't pay their water bills and could have, I mean, we for the, you know, for the small percentage of people that saw that they didn't have to, they weren't going to get shut off and they didn't have to pay their water bill, and so we didn't shut them off, but they could have fully afforded to pay their water bill. In other words, the probably very small number of people that took advantage of us. Are we talking about, I mean, is there a distinction being made between people who truly were, you know, sort of economically unable to do so versus people that said, hey, stock market's going up 20%. I can take that, you know, 200 or 500, you know, dollar bill and invest it in the stock market, and, you know, when they make us pay again, I'll, you know, pay up.
There was an iteration of the language that had attestation requirements. Those got removed at the leadership level.
So the millionaires are getting a free pass on this.
I don't know. I don't know what the, but that's,
Okay.
okay. So state budget process is still happening. You'll see the governor signing bills, and we keep seeing press releases. There's been a main budget bill signed. There have been several amendments to the main budget bill. Budget Junior just got signed. There's probably going to be more budget bill amendments, and the trailer bills are going to continue to roll probably through August. They've got a lot more they need to come to agreement on. So this is going to be a very long budget year for sure. The good news is I don't think we're going to see special sessions like we did during the deficits, and you know, we're still talking about budget in November. Those days are over. At the federal level, I think we have talked before about Upper San Leandro. We submitted a funding request. Representative Swalwell put that funding request forward and was able to secure $3.5 million as a project-specific earmark. in the House Appropriations bill. That has passed the House Appropriations Committee, and it will now go to the floor. It's part of the EPA spending bill. That is huge. The highest project amount for a non-federal entity is $3.5 million. So that's a really, really good thing. He came and visited us yesterday at Upper San Leandro and wanted a tour. He wanted to see the project. Great to see that kind of interest and commitment. And we also learned yesterday that the Senate is behind the House on the budget process. And Senator Padilla has advanced Upper San Leandro as part of his package. So they've still got to get through the appropriations, but we now have support from both the Senate and the House on that project. So that's good news. It's wrapped up in the budget conversations, and we don't know where they're going to find agreement and where they're not. We may see areas where, for example, on an EPA spending bill, there'll be agreement. They may put those in what's called a minibus instead of an omnibus. And so right now we're hoping to be on the minibus, everybody. And then they would do a continuing resolution for those areas where they don't come to agreement. This is all still swirling, and what's wrapped up in the budget, but separate, is the infrastructure conversation. And the infrastructure conversation, the House has passed its infrastructure bill. The Senate has not released their infrastructure bill. That's expected in a few weeks. And the Senate is still trying to figure out how they're going to pay for it. So that is a signal that the compromise is going to have to happen to come to a final infrastructure bill. What has been separated out is kind of, roughly speaking, sort of the brick and mortar infrastructure from what would be called the more soft infrastructure, like workforce issues. That's going to be a separate effort. It's not part of these main infrastructure bills. Part of what's in the House infrastructure bill is a federal rate assistance program. That's wrapped up with some other funding pieces. Again, these are kind of moving parts at this point, but while that's happening, HHS is looking at what a permanent federal rate assistance program would look like. So nothing definite, but a whole lot of moving parts.
Great.
But good news for us so far.
Thanks for staying on top of that. Our thanks to Eric too, I'm sure. Any questions, thoughts, reactions? Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on to item 13, which is our task to appoint an ad hoc committee to negotiate amendments to the employment agreement with our general manager. Consistent with past practice, the board is being asked to appoint 3 members of the board to serve on the ad hoc committee. Do I have any volunteers? It's gotten really quiet in this room. All right. Thank you, Director Mack.
I was just going to say I've been on every ad hoc committee that's happened in the last year, so I might take a pass.
Do I need to be on this committee?
As president, you have to be on every committee, Doug.
Except the standing committees.
That's where you get the big bucks.
Just checking to make
If
sure.
you do it, I'll do it with you. How's that?
All right, you, me, and Lisa? All right, that sounds like a deal. Then I'll ask for a motion to that effect. And I guess I heard one from John.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll second.
And Marguerite seconds enthusiastically to not be on it. And all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. We're on to the general manager's report.
Okay, so I have 4 items. The first is an update on our drought operations and our water conservation outreach activities. We'll also briefly cover how we plan to respond to potential taste and odor issues. As requested by the board in the July 8th information memo, we did include more details on the taste and odor event that occurred earlier in June. We also share with you an email we received today from a customer with the suggestion of how we can save water, and staff will get back to the customer. So we have Lena Tam, Manager of Water Resources Planning, Alice Toohey, Manager of Water Conservation, and Andrea Polk, Senior Information Representative. They'll provide the update.
Good afternoon, President Lenny and board members. Last Thursday, Governor Newsom had expanded the state's drought declaration, asking residents to voluntarily cut their water use by 15%, and extended the emergency drought declaration to almost every Bay Area county, now covering 50 of the state's 58 counties. Like the state, the projected runoff that we had expected on the McElmy River did not materialize, and that we are converging at the median level of total system storage of 425,000 acre feet. That's about 55% of our total maximum, and our runoff is basically landing at around 219,000 acre feet, which is about 100,000 acre feet less than what we had projected back in April. In a similar vein, the Bureau of Reclamation had told us that their initial allocation of 55% got reduced to 25% of our contractual amount, and that we needed to delay our diversions to September 15th.
Lena, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Going back to the diversion. Is there anything that could arise? Now, I know the governor's actions are separate from the CVP, but is there anything that could arise where all of a sudden we're anticipating that diversion of for a contract that says, nope, September 1, you're not going to be able to do it?
We were worried about that, so we did ask the Bureau for confirmation if any of their operations at Keswick or, with temperature management could affect our allocation, and they confirmed that all systems are go because we are making a lot of investments in preparing for those diversions.
And we have that in writing from them?
Yes, we do,
Great.
at an email.
Thank you.
So despite the hydrologic conditions, the district is very well positioned to handle multi-year droughts. Our district's water shortage contingency plan and the investments that we made in Freeport, the pipeline rebuild program, and water recycling are paying dividends. In April, the board had declared that we are in a stage 1 of a drought. We had asked for voluntary rationing based upon our total system storage and the suppressed demand from the prior drought. And from the lessons learned, our objective is to preserve our district storage by combining early conservation with early supplemental supplies in the event we would be facing a reduction in our allocation, which turned out to be the case this year. And if drought conditions worsen, we do have the option as a board, as a district, to move to mandatory rationing and invoke specific incentives and penalties. And as Clifford mentioned, we did have some issues with taste and odor that obviously has nothing to do with the Freeport project at the moment because of temperature and algal blooms. And Andrea will discuss how we are outreaching to our customers.
Good afternoon, members of the board. It's nice to see you all in person. So I'll just give you a brief update about water quality concerns. We know that during dry seasons, dry years such as this one, it's more likely that we'll see algal blooms in our reservoirs, and some of our customers as a result will notice some changes in the taste of the water. First and foremost, we have invested a significant amount of money, nearly $50 million already, to address these taste and odor issues, specifically with ozone at both USL and Sobrante. The proactive communications that we do in regards to these customer questions and complaints about the changes in water, we investigate and we immediately respond to each and every customer that contacts us. We also, depending on the situation, we will put information on our website. We will also use our social media channels to get that information out. Our first step, however, is always to work on the issue operationally and prevent these issues from occurring. We're going to be working together with Water Operations and the system water quality folks to develop thresholds as we move forward to help us make decisions and be clear about when is it that we go to kind of more escalated communications with our customers using social media, emails, or a variety of other methods. We do use emails now to notify our customers, especially commercial industrial customers who have very specific needs regarding water quality changes. We notify them individually, and we do provide information on our website about changes in water quality and taste. That's all I have on taste and odor. Are there any questions?
This is more of an operational question than a communications question. Do 105-degree temperatures increase the? I'm just wondering how the heat waves have changed or are changing, making it worse, basically.
More chemicals.
I assume you're referring to the algae blooms?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, they're definitely, we're seeing large stratification in all of our lakes. All of the lakes we use for water supply right now have some algae content. We definitely saw an increase with the temperatures. We're hopeful it'll subside and kind of go through a 3 or 4 week cycle, which many of these blooms do. So we are stretched right now. Our best water is our coldest water, and it has the least algae content, and happens to be in Pardee right now. We are doing everything we can to keep that water where it is, and operating our filter plants with as creatively as we can to keep the taste and odor complaints minimized and keep that cold water pool where it should be. We're pulling out all the stops, but hopefully in about a week or two it'll start to roll off.
Could you explain a little bit more about filter plants? I don't think we had heard about that change in our operation.
So the algal blooms do two things. They create odor-causing compounds that we get complaints about. They also limit filter plant production. Both high algal load in our lakes do both of those bad things. So we have to operate around both of them. So sometimes, right now, our inline filter plants at Walnut Creek and Orinda do get impacted by the filter clogging aspect of the algae that's in Pardee, which happens to be at the top, which gets exacerbated by the very hot temperatures in the Central Valley.
Got it. This may be the first time we've had a possible uptick in algae blooms at the same time that we've installed this ozone equipment. I don't believe we had this, certainly not to this degree at the time of the last drought. Is it possible that the new equipment could mitigate to a good degree the customer experience, or I'm assessing that in terms of the level of proactivity. Do we wait for some customers to complain before we have highly increased communications, or do we think that our investments are going to work?
We have the capability at the plants that typically have taste and odor problems at USL and Soprania. We have the capability to handle taste and odor. That is usually with our ozone. We try to minimize ozone use because it produces bromate and disinfection byproducts. So we try to draw that line and strike that balance. We try to detect the odors with proactive monitoring and predictive monitoring and lake monitoring and inflow monitoring to see it coming and turn up the ozone to handle it and nip the complaints in the bud before the water gets into the surface area. But the answer to your question is we have the facilities to handle it. I would also add that at San Pablo Reservoir, we are adding aeration in a few years. That will also greatly help. That's a few years away.
And I mean, just to kind of emphasize what Dave's talking about, but we do go out on the lakes to sample in advance to see what's in the lake. Then we test the influent, what's coming into the plant. We test what's going out of the plant, and then we have as we discussed last time, the super sniffers to detect it. So we don't wait for the complaints to make adjustments operationally.
Mm-hmm. My suggestion, based on hearing that, would be that we focus our early story on how hard we're working to address these issues, what the investments that we've made are, before we have a teaser story about a problem that people may not even be directly experiencing yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, the problem with that is that sometimes people may think you've planted the seed of thought that maybe.
Tasting bad water?
Right.
Oh, I taste my water,
Yeah,
doesn't taste
doesn't
good.
taste right.
Actually, I was advocating to prevent that, so, but I think that's the consideration that I'm concerned about.
Okay, good afternoon, members of the board. Just moving on, I'm just going to give you a quick update on our drought outreach and messaging and projects to help our customers. So first of all, we wanted to let you know that later this month we are launching our ad campaign, Make Every Drop Count. So this includes a whole range of digital and print ads, traditional outlets like newspapers, as well as advertising through the web and social media. We are going to be looking at some streaming music services to have some ads that tell customers how they can, save water by taking shorter showers, and they're going to recommend some short songs by local Bay Area artists that they can listen to. And the cool thing about those services is you can kind of target those ads based on things like demographics and people's musical tastes. So it should be, we're hoping it'll be pretty fun and a good way to get folks' attention. Later this summer, we will have print ads, as I mentioned, coming out. Those will be multilingual, as well as we're using some of our Clear Channel credits to secure 2 digital billboards and a number of ads on transit shelters from August through September. And I believe those transit shelter ads will be in a mix of several languages as well. I did want to let you know as well in conservation that we just recently launched a new program. This is something we've been kind of working on for a while, but we sort of fast-tracked due to the drought. We're calling it our Super Rebate program. This is an enhancement to our current landscape rebate program. It's designed to provide an extra incentive for those customers that go the extra mile in terms of sustainability and water savings. So we're doubling the rebate per square foot up to $1.50 per square foot of lawn replaced if customers choose 3 of these 4 items. So, putting in native plants, using sheet mulching to get rid of the lawn, applying compost that helps increase the soil's ability to retain moisture, and then planting in the cool season where they need less irrigation. Also kind of related to this, we are opening up our lawn rebate program to medians. That's something that we hadn't had it open to before. So that's a particular interest to cities, commercial customers.
Irrigated, maybe. Currently
irrigated, yes, yeah. Yeah, our lawn program you have to be currently irrigating the lawn. It has to be alive for us to rebate it, so. And we have been promoting that new program on social media. So there was a social media post on Twitter and Facebook and Nextdoor to promote the Super Rebate program. It reached over 1,000 people in the first 24 hours. So there continues to, we are getting some good attention and interest in our programs. We are continuing to get a lot of media inquiries about conservation at East Bay Mud. That picked up in particular last week after the governor's latest executive order and drought declaration. So far in 2021, there have been 63 drought interviews with local media. Just a few other items I want to just kind of mention in terms of getting the word out. We did update the top of bill message earlier this month to have a message that encourages customers to reduce their water use and visit our website to learn how. And that message also appears on the KUBRA portal and KUBRA email notifications for those customers that don't receive print bills. And we are working on, as well, updating the bill insert and the back of the envelope message to be focused on the drought. The customer pipeline went out and it featured several drought articles, and those have been shared on our webpage and on Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. And as some of you are already aware, we're also receiving quite a bit of interest from our cities within our service area. This month alone, we've got presentations with San Pablo, Hercules, Pinole, I think San Ramon later this month, El Cerrito, and then an event with the city of Berkeley. So we definitely appreciate hearing from our public agency partners. And we have a slide deck if any of you folks are interested in using it, or if you have city council or mayors that are interested in getting a presentation, we can help accommodate that.
Orinda reached out early on, right after the drought
Orinda?
declaration. Yeah, Inga Miller from the city council.
I
forwarded it to somebody, but
we'll follow up on that.
Okay.
That was City of Orinda?
yeah.
And
Thank
can
you.
you send the deck out so we have it available? I mean,
Yeah,
I've been
absolutely.
making presentations, but as Just people make inquiries, I can pull it up and answer questions too.
We can absolutely do that. Thank you. Also, in terms of community outreach, so July 21st will be the second in our Water Wednesday speakers series. That's going to feature me and two of my colleagues from water conservation. We're going to be talking about how people can save water, and we will be including a short trivia game. So invite your friends and family, show them how much you know about water conservation. It should be a fun evening.
Could you send just a specific email about that out to us? It makes it easier to forward when it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can include this graphic as well.
That's great.
Put it on Facebook.
Are there any other questions about our drought outreach or communications?
I just want to say, if you're looked into trademarking Make Every Drop Count, it was my 2014 campaign slogan.
So we owe you a check, is what you're saying?
Actually, Marguerite, we used that in 2010, so you owe East Bay Mud.
All right, thank you very much.
I have a question about the element in the super rebate pilot program that would require planting in the cool season. Of course, that we want to make sure that the rebate is efficient, as well as the inclusion of customers. I'm curious just how that will affect the customer experience, and how that interplays with customer involvement during the drought emergency.
Yeah.
For customers who, for whatever reason, for their project, sheet mulching or compost doesn't work for them, and to have that third element, they would need to plant in the cold season. Does that mean they basically have to defer the project that they would like to do until late fall? Is that the consequence of that?
Yeah, that is correct. And again, so we're asking customers to do 3 of these 4 items to get the super rebate. If customers aren't able to commit to that for whatever reason, we still have our regular lawn rebate that's 75 cents per square foot. But yeah, we are, again, with this, we are trying to kind of incentivize those projects that are a little more sustainable and do provide additional water savings.
I would also add that native plants primarily should also be planted in the cool season, not in the middle of June. So, I mean, the super rebate is a fall planting. It basically say, prepare your soil, get rid of your lawn, stop watering it, sheet mulch, compost, and then plant in October.
In the fall, ideally, yeah. I mean, we have had conversations among staff about how to kind of handle this program. Typically, with our rebate program, we do set like a time limit. So, customers, when they apply, they have a certain amount of time to complete the project. We're usually pretty flexible on that. We don't have an issue with, kind of doing extensions to customers who are still underway. And so we've talked about the fact that definitely would be something we need to consider here. So if somebody is, kind of thinking about starting their project now, and they do want to plant in the fall, we would certainly, work with them to make that happen.
There's some degree of planning involved, but as we are making this part of our drought communications, we should be thinking about the deferred nature of the program as we roll out actions that people can do right now during a drought emergency, and to make sure that we're not surprising customers when they learn about the details.
Yeah, we will take that into consideration. That is a good point. Thank you. Are there other questions, comments?
Just one comment. I've been watching some of the programs that have to do with weather effect and the EVAP. And it also indicated that the recent hot wave that we had, how many million gallons went to EVAP. So despite all the efforts we have going with customer communication for them to save, we're having an impact in some of our storage places. And we don't have any way to control that.
You mean evaporation from our reservoirs?
No, yeah, from reservoirs, from any of the containments that we have where water is assembled. The heat wave that recently went through, it had a major impact. I just wondered, does that have anything in it from our standpoint that we can convey to the state, because they continue to have us do things that are contradictory to that process. If we do what we do and that process continues, the net effect of that is our customer base. So I'm just saying, I don't know that we can solve it, but we need to be aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I think that is something that we take into account in a lot of our modeling in terms of, is the fact that there is evaporation off our reservoirs. But I think certainly that is something to consider going forward when we think about climate change.
Not communicating to the state, but in our projections, when you see the 425, I mean, there are, heat waves here and there, but we do use, average climate when we predict out. That includes evaporation.
And just one other thing to add to that, we do talk a lot about evaporation in terms of our outreach and education to customers about their irrigation. We're always telling people it's better to water early in the morning or later in the day. That's part of the reason that we encourage things like the use of mulch and compost, because it does kind of help sort of increase the soil's ability to retain that moisture and prevent evaporation. But yeah, it's definitely something we're going to be needing to pay attention to, especially with climate change as things are getting hotter.
Yeah.
Hotter, more hot. Are there other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. Last presentation is a very brief presentation. We are seeing the vaccination rate climb, but we're also seeing a number of unvaccinated employees contracting COVID. So Dave Briggs is here to give a very brief update.
Good afternoon again. Thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President Linney, members of the board. Okay, so unlike the month of May and the first half of June, where the state government and the different parts of the state government were seemingly going in different directions, things really did coalesce in the middle of June, and thankfully there have been very few, if not any, changes in regulations and guidance over the last month. That has made things much easier for us to administer and run the district over the last month. So that, as you know, many protocols were rescinded or relaxed in the middle of June, and many of which we're enjoying right now in the boardroom, such as no occupancy limits, no social distancing, very few rules on carpooling, relaxed mask wearing, and next to no travel restrictions. So, but others remain. As an employer, we're obligated to control access to our building and make sure that everyone goes through a symptom self-check before they access our building. As a building manager, we still maintain our ventilation systems to maximize ventilation. We clean things regularly, and we have to have a plan ready that keeps all of our administrative items in one place as part of the OSHA requirements. So the state emergency declaration remains in effect, as do the counties and as does East Bay MUD's. Many executive orders have been rescinded or modified. The two most relevant executive orders are the moratorium on water shutoffs, which is extended through September 30th, 2021, and the portions of the Brown Act, which have been suspended through the same date. When the governor will rescind the emergency declaration is anybody's guess, but we'll have a wait and see on that. So at the district, our employee contraction rate for the coronavirus is low, as you can see that in the graphic at the bottom, but it's persistent, and we're showing 88 on this slide, slide 3. Over the weekend, we had our 89th employee contract the coronavirus, so 2 employees are home isolating right now. Both of those employees were unvaccinated. We have about a half dozen employees who, for various reasons, are not at work, whether they are in quarantine or recovering from the vaccine. We did have about half dozen people were in close contact with our last employee. Those that were unvaccinated are quarantined. Those that are vaccinated and asymptomatic, which they are at work. So you can see the impact of the unvaccinated employees in these statistics here. The paid leave, fully paid leave for COVID-related reasons is employees are eligible for up to 80 hours through September 30th. I am not aware of any extensions by the federal, state, or any other agency of extending that past September 30th. So that will be here shortly. Here's our latest numbers, well, at least through last week. So our vaccination rate for district employees is roughly on par with the counties, Alameda County and Contra Costa County, a little bit lower than Contra Costa County. We know these numbers are too low. We know we'd like to get them higher. All the numbers, every demographic, these numbers should be higher. We're going to focus our efforts in the next month with visits to our service yards where we know the vaccination rates are lower. And we are going to have conversations with employees who are hesitant or reluctant about vaccination. We know that the messenger is just important as the message itself. And so we are going to work with who that might be, whether it's a community member, a peer, a health expert, whoever it might be. We're going to take a long look at that and bring a group of people with us to visit these places and talk to employees about why they might have hesitation with getting vaccinated. Hopefully, when we return in a month with our next report, we'll have a number in the mid-70s. That's certainly my goal. Contra Costa County will visit our work sites and vaccinate our employees as soon as we identify a critical mass of them to make it worth their time. So that brings us back to the original challenge. But they will do this if we have a critical mass of employees for them. We're still working with Alameda County. About 3 weeks ago, employees started to return to work to this building. I have not heard about any major problems. The progress to return to this building is slow. It's timed with our carpet replacement, which will take another 4 months or so. Right now, we're on a busy day, we're 25% occupied, so that's still relatively low. And about every month, this will, based on the pace of the carpet project, and as it's completed, we'll probably increase this by about 5% per month all the way through November. So this will happen very slowly. We will continue to work with managers and supervisors to maintain an open door to employees who may have challenges with childcare or a medical issue that they need to discuss with HR as it might relate to coming back to work. So we will continue to make sure that all of those conversations happen. And while the carpet will dictate the timing of coming back to work, the district's long-term telecommute plan will dictate the number of days that employees need to be here versus telecommuting. So the two of those will work together, and I believe we'll have that plan perhaps out in a few weeks. And then finally, for you all, you're still operating under Executive Order 0821, which suspends portions of the Brown Act through September 30th. You are here voluntarily, but it's very great to see you. And the boardroom will remain closed to the general public through September 30th. Individuals can come to the building by appointment, and there's all sorts of reasons why that might happen. The general public, meaning somebody just off the street walking through the front door and coming into the boardroom, won't happen until after September 30th. And Risha will be sure to update instructions for public participation if she hasn't already long before that time. And that's all I have for you today.
I have a question related to that. I'm encouraged to see that our numbers are up to 69% compared to the last time we met. It was 53 or 56%. My question is as much for legal and HR, and I'm not expecting an answer today. For those who choose not to get vaccinated and it's not due to religious or medical reasons, what is our obligation if they come down with COVID in terms of going forward, of having the benefits, and they're making a personal decision not to do it? So do we have an obligation? What are our financial and legal obligations to them versus those who, for religious and medical reasons, do not or cannot? And, you know, we've had 88, 89 cases now, and we'll have some more probably, hopefully not. But it's putting a hindrance on our operations as an organization. And I don't expect an answer today, and I would expect that that's a legal HR issue to get back to.
We'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, attached is the 6 months forecast and summary and the monthly report, and I can answer any questions. But before, I also want to let you know, we did send out an info memo on the Judge John Sutter Memorial planned for July 24th. If you do plan to attend, please let the Secretary's office know.
And I have a question also on your GM report, which is great, and I'm glad that we're working with the state on the 500,000 fingerling steelheads. An article in the Chronicle this morning, and I know this has been an issue, and Catherine Everett's talked with me and probably others about it in the past. And we have colder water in Pardee, as David talked about, of moving some of the fish into our reservoirs so they can migrate further upriver. Would that be helpful in terms of survival rate of the steelhead salmon is it feasible, and would it be beneficial from a standpoint of survival of the salmon?
I think there will be issues with that, but Lena, do you want to tackle that?
Don't they have
Or
to-
we can wait and
But they
address
can
it
be
next
picked
time.
up again later.
Why don't we address that next time?
Yeah, that'd be
Director
great. I'm not expecting, I would have mentioned it yesterday, but the article's in the Chronicle this morning. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, one of our biologists is probably the best person.
Yeah.
All right, any questions on the GM report? Okay, committee reports, minutes from the June 22nd redistricting ad hoc and finance administration committee were included in the agenda packet. We can now receive reports from today's planning and legislative human resources committees. Director Young, planning committee?
Yeah, the planning committee heard 3 of the 4 items on the agenda. We deferred the item on the innovation and research center to the August meeting, and we're all very much looking forward to that update and the planning committee meeting. But we got an annual update on the pipeline rebuild program. Great work, 25 miles of pipeline replaced this past year, which is above our goal, and not slowing down, taking a very strategic approach to the future and continuing to add miles and innovate around leak detection and materials and smart infrastructure, which gets that program. Second item was our trail use permit program, and again looking to increase access by getting permits, 1-year permits to all of our CAP customers, and also piloting a free day use permit as well, combined with outreach targeted towards low-income bill-paying and non-bill-paying customers of the district to increase awareness and access. And then the third item was just some education about plans for the excessive use ordinance, and that'll be coming to the full board in August. So that's it from planning.
All right, thank you. Legislative?
We already discussed everything today in the Leg HR committee, so nothing more to report.
All right, great. Items for future discussion, please submit any items for future consideration to the general manager. Any director comments? Frank?
Just wanted to note the passing of Fred Zinner, who is the publisher of the Castro Valley Forum and the San Leandro Times. This is one of those situations where you have what would otherwise be a local rag becomes better news than you get out of the East Bay Times for your local communities. And Fred unfortunately died in your community, Doug. He was crossing the street and nailed by a hit-and-run driver, or by a drunk driver.
He was on a bicycle?
No, he was walking. He was in a crosswalk. And he died at the scene. There's a lot of us that are nervous, wondering what's going to happen with what's a critical piece of newspaper. But Channel 2, I had no idea how long he had been associated with Channel 2. And the day after his passing, they gave 15 plus minutes just talking about him and various people. So he was a very important part of the community, and just want to note that for purposes of our departments here and public information, I ain't got no idea who you're going to talk to. So I'll keep my ear to the ground on it, but it's we don't even know if we're going to have a little newspaper. So, and I, just as an interesting footnote, Fred, when he left Channel 2, he actually bought the San Leandro Times And the Castro Valley Forum was owned by two women who were doing everything they could, including publishing campaign materials for people. I have some knowledge of that. And Fred saved their newspaper by buying it from them. So thank you for letting me take a moment to talk about Fred.
Thank you. Any other?
Just real quick, I'd like to note the passing of former Senator Dick Rainey. He did a lot of work with East Bay MUD legislatively in Sacramento on July 4th.
All right. Bill? Did you
Judge Sutter?
Yeah, I didn't have any prepared remarks for that, or did I?
I'm looking here, I believe we have speaker notes, but I did not include those in your notes for Judge Sutter. Adjournment is on.
Right, we were going to adjourn today's meeting in honor of Judge Sutter. Did you want to?
I just wanted to reiterate, I met Judge Sutter in the 70s when he actually was in the City Council of Oakland before he was appointed to the bench, and we had been friends since the 70s. He'll be sorely missed. His wife passed earlier this year. I don't know if you were aware of that, but Judge Sutter was just a good friend. He called me often and would inquire about different things. Some we didn't even agree on, but it was nice to be in his company and to reiterate some of the things we started with. He encouraged me to run for East Bay Regional Parks, and when I didn't, he ran for it and got the seat. Yeah.
Well, I was very fortunate to work with Judge Sutter, and we didn't often refer to him as Judge Sutter even after he retired from the bench in his role at the East Bay Regional Parks District. A passionate advocate for open space and public space for people, whether it was formerly in the Regional Parks District or in the estuary area, the water trails that he advocated for. And just a real honor to be able to work with someone so dedicated to the community. And I know he also had a brief passing work with him when he was fighting to protect the estuary from overdevelopment. And I think put a ballot measure, or tried to put a ballot measure. I can't remember whether it got on, but I saw another side of John where, apart from the quiet, steely kind of force that he was also willing to just get out there and really fight hard for something that he thought was the wrong thing or the inappropriate thing, and in favor of public lands and public space. And we'll miss him greatly. And there is a memorial service on the 24th at the foot of the bridge there, park, one of the parks that he advocated to set up. And so today I would like to close today's meeting in honor of Judge John Sutter.
Here.